Hi, I'm Shan Wu, and welcome to an Under Color of Law hot take on gagging Donald Trump. Judges and prosecutors aren't taking the Trump gag orders far enough. Now, that statement's going to engender a lot of outcry over protecting the First Amendment, although mostly that outcry is going to come from the conservative right that seems to selectively become champions of the Constitution whenever it suits them, instead of actually protecting all of our constitutional rights. We'll talk about how the First Amendment factors in, but first, let's look at the unusual problem that Trump poses when it comes to gag orders. So here's the problem. Most criminal case gag orders are put in place to protect the defendant from pretrial publicity that might make the trial unfair. That's because the potential jury pool might be tainted and it would make it harder to find unbiased jurors. That kind of danger arises from media coverage or even statements by prosecutors. That can cause a judge to issue a gag order telling all the participants in the trial no comments to the press, and it stops the idea of trying the case on the courthouse steps, as lawyers like to say. But these usual reasons for a gag order don't really apply because trying the case on the courthouse steps is exactly what Donald Trump wants to do, or more precisely, he wants to try the case on the campaign trail as the presumed Republican nominee. So, if defendant Trump doesn't care about pretrial publicity, why do we need a gag order? Easy answer. It's the danger to people's safety and the danger to our system of justice posed by Trump's verbal attacks, smearing of witnesses, judge, and prosecutors. The danger of his words has been obvious for a long time. The Walmart mass shooter whose manifesto echoed Trump's racist, anti-immigrant words, his encouragement to the January 6 rioters, the terrible racist harassment and death threats to Georgia election workers Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who had been falsely accused of election fraud, the swatting of Special Prosecutor Jack Smith's house on Christmas, and even the racist murders and beatings of Asian Americans, typically elderly Asian women, in the wake of Trump's scapegoating of China for COVID-19. That list can go on and on. So the gag orders in Trump's cases are not meant to protect him, but to protect others from him, or rather protect people from the effect of his words that often cause his followers to carry out dangerous actions, like whoever sent white powder to the offices of District Attorney Alvin Bragg. That's the Manhattan District Attorney bringing the election interference charges against Trump. They arise from him having paid hush money to the actress-director Stormy Daniels to keep quiet about their affair. The courts do get this danger. Remember when Trump kept posting about the judge's law clerk in the defamation case where E. Jean Carroll sued him? Well, that led that judge, Arthur Engoron, to impose a gag order that stopped Trump from talking about court staff. And when Trump violated the order, the judge fined him. Also, the judge in the federal case, the January 6 trial, has also imposed a gag order that stops Trump from talking about jurors, too. Just yesterday, the judge in the Manhattan case, Judge Juan Merchan, had to expand his gag order on Trump to specifically protect the judge's adult daughter from Trump's attacking her. Merchan did this by revising his order to include the family members, his own, and family members of the district attorney, Alvin Bragg. So you can see how complex the gag orders have gotten with Trump, and of course how much time is spent on them, and the mileage Trump gets out of constantly complaining that his First Amendment rights are being violated. But all these complications arise from judges and prosecutors being timid, too timid. There are plenty of cases in which a judge just orders no talking about the case, period. Zip it. If you talk, you'll find yourself explaining to the judge who may fine you or, in repeated violations, lock you up. That hasn't happened with Trump because the judges and prosecutors buy into the argument that Trump, being a presidential candidate, makes his First Amendment speech deserving of special heightened protection. And they're theoretically right. The protection of political speech is given high protections under the First Amendment. But they are applying that protection wrong. First, stopping Trump from talking about his criminal trials does not stop all his political speech. It just stops him from talking about the charges against him, those cases. It might be a good time to recall that most candidates are not campaigning on a policy platform of vote for me because I'm being prosecuted. Trump should have plenty of other things to campaign about besides his criminal trials. Maybe. Or maybe that's all he really has. But if that's all he's really got, that's not the court's problem. If all he has to campaign on is complaining about being accused of breaking the law, that's a problem for him, not for the judges. Their responsibility is to get the cases fairly tried. The biggest mental block the judges and prosecutors seem to have is they want to exempt themselves from Trump's verbal attacks, meaning all the gag orders so far, even the one Judge Merchan expanded to protect his daughter, still allow Trump to attack the judges themselves and the main prosecutors, like Manhattan DA Bragg or Special Counsel Jack Smith, who Trump regularly refers to as being deranged. That hesitancy isn't warranted because there's no downside to having a full gag order. What happens if a gag order is too broad or if it violates the Constitution? It's not like a Fourth Amendment violation where evidence gets suppressed, or a Fifth Amendment violation where confession gets thrown out because the right to remain silent got violated. It's not even like a Sixth Amendment violation where conviction gets reversed because the defendant didn't have their right to counsel protected. No, the remedy for a First Amendment violation is just to get rid of the restraint on speech. Really, that's always the remedy for a First Amendment concern. More speech. So what would that look like? The Court of Appeals, maybe even the U.S. Supreme Court, might strike down the gag order or narrow it. It would have zero effect, no effect at all on the evidence put forth in the trial, and it would have zero effect on a conviction. So judges and prosecutors don't have to be so afraid of getting it wrong on the gag order. They need to stop implicitly buying into Trump and his lawyers' spin that the First Amendment issue is so critical in his criminal trials. It's not. The media gets it wrong also. Every panel I've been on has to address the First Amendment concern as though that's what's the most critical issue. It's not. The most critical issue is safety. The safety of people, including judges and prosecutors. Recently, a sitting federal judge, Judge Reggie Walton, spoke out over the concern about judicial safety. It's a real one, even though judges obviously have more security than regular folks. The same is true for prosecutors like Jack Smith and Alvin Bragg. But there's another kind of safety that's just as important and maybe even more significant in the long run. It's the safety of our system and, by extension, the safety of our democracy. The system is hurt by Trump's bullying and smearing of judges and prosecutors in his cases. Potential witnesses and jurors hearing and seeing that are apt to think, geez, if he can get away with that about judges and prosecutors, who's going to protect me? That hurts the integrity of the courts and the integrity of the trials. Judges and prosecutors might have extra security, but the only security the system and democracy has is them. We have to depend on public officials being willing to do their jobs. And here, that means Trump needs to be gagged completely. So that's it for now, but let me know what you think, and I would love to hear about other topics and issues you might want us to cover. Thanks.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.